AI will take over.
Yeah.
And if you ask some scientists, they say they will. If you ask some, they say they won't, right?
Yeah.
You can build, well, some would argue this, but I would say you can build ambition and creativity into AI.
Welcome to episode 25 of the Crownsman podcast. I am your host, Jared Downey, and my co-host is Gowdy Molina. How are you today?
I am very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm actually very good. Yeah. I worked from home all yesterday,
Oh, really?
which allows me to think about all the things that I want to do better. So I don't know if that's I actually don't know if it's healthy. But
Yeah, I don't know.
but I got
about
lots done.
that. That's good though.
We got a cool show
We
today
do.
because robots are just awesome. I mean, they make movies just about robots.
I know, right?
And then you combine that with the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence.
Yes. I think
and
it's a large part of the industry. It's
yeah,
any industry actually.
yeah. This one will be a little tilted towards agriculture. We've got Afshin who is the CEO of Advanced Intelligence Systems, and Afshin came on the show. I met him through LinkedIn actually a couple weeks ago, and I looked at what their company was doing, and I thought, okay, well, this is perfect because we've talked about AI.
Yeah.
We've talked about the Internet of Things. We've talked about all sorts of technology, but we actually haven't. I'm surprised we haven't got into the robots yet.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm excited for this.
yeah, it's gonna be
Okay.
fun.
But before we start, can I
What are we doing?
sponsors
Sponsors? Oh yeah, we have.
before we continue? Okay, so we are sponsored by Savona Equipment. If you need anything from slurry pumps to jaw crushers to ball mills to conveyors, go to the leader in used mining equipment. That's Savona Equipment, and you can visit them at savonaequipment.com, where you'll find more equipment every day and electrical too.
Cool.
We're also sponsored by Data Cloud. Does it feel like you're drilling and blasting blind? Could your MWG measurements be better? The Data Cloud platform shows your lithology changes in real time for better blasting and fragmentation profiles. Check out their IoT sensors and cloud computing platform at datacloud.com and learn how you can know your rock today. And last but not least, brought to you by Resource World Magazine. They report on the business of mining, oil and gas, green technologies, and the events that affect these sectors. Catch their April-May issue and see all the latest news at resourceworld.com. And I'm good.
Thank you, Gowdy. Okay, Afshin,
Yes.
thanks for joining the show. Appreciate you
pleasure.
coming out. Yeah, we've got time to dig into what your company does,
Okay.
what they're planning to do, how they're
Yeah.
doing it. You've got a unique business model, so
Yeah.
we've got a lot of moving parts to cover here.
Yes.
As you probably heard from our sponsors just now, there's a heavy tilt to mining
Yes.
in our show, but we've done agriculture show, we've done transportation, and I think mostly it's basically my fault that we tilt so much towards mining because that's sort of my background. So it's easy to get those guests from there. But we want to talk about heavy industry on a whole,
Yes.
and what you're doing is very interesting.
Thank you.
So can you just give us that snapshot of just what AIS is as a
Yes.
company?
Yes. First, I should tell you that we do have a slight interest in mining also because at AIS we have the aim to automate tasks that are dangerous for humans to do or tasks that are very labor-heavy tasks and people just don't want to do it. And mining does have some of those tasks. So we are looking at mining and we are trying to develop some kind of a future product for mining. We haven't narrowed it down to exactly what, but that's something that's on our books.
Right.
But what AIS is a practical autonomous robotics company with a software and hardware platform, and we automate tasks that nobody wants to do.
Right. Okay. So that's it. You sort of specialize at the moment. Where do you specialize?
We started looking at agriculture as our first market,
Mm.
and specifically horticulture. And we've developed some really good relationships in this industry. So naturally, the first few products that we're producing will go towards agriculture and horticulture.
Yeah. Why that? Why that industry specifically? And we'll get into more what the machines do. That'll probably make it
Sure.
clear. But why that initial? Why the initial step
Sure.
towards?
The horticulture industry is hurting very badly because of a lack of labor. Most of the work that they require to be done is really hard, laborious work, and they can't find labor in order to fill those positions. So when we started looking at their work processes and how we can contribute, we were welcomed by everyone we approached. And it's interesting, we realized that the industry is hurting so much, the size of the industry is actually shrinking, and the only reason is not having access to enough labor.
Mm-hmm.
So they welcomed our proposals to automate certain tasks, and naturally we started working on it, and that's where we landed.
When you're saying it's shrinking, are you talking about in which markets? Are you talking North American markets,
North
globally?
American, European markets,
Yeah.
everywhere where labor is expensive,
Right.
and the nature of work is changing in a lot of markets. For
Mm-hmm.
example, today people are willing to do easier work for less pay rather than do something that's extremely hard on their body and get paid a few bucks more.
Mm-hmm.
So in all those societies where the quality of life is taking precedent over, that little bit of a incremental extra pay on the paycheck, labor is moving towards doing more intelligent work rather than more physical work.
Mm-hmm.
And in those industries, the horticulture is really hurting in those environments.
Right. And you said so so how did you get involved with the company? You didn't actually found AIS, did you?
No, there were two founders, and these two founders both electrical engineers,
Oh.
and they were robotics engineers, and they founded the company. And about a year and a half to 2 years after the company was founded, they wanted to structure the company in order to raise funds.
Mm.
So they had incorporated and they had done a lot of amazing things, but they were at a spot where they need to make a decision to grow the company. And so they sat down with me as an advisor, and I got involved with them. Eventually, I became their CEO.
Mm.
And then we looked at how we scale and we grow the company. So we grew the company from a team of 5 people to 36 full-time employees and a total of 63 people collaborating together.
Oh wow. I wanted to get into right off the bat the business model, because you're talking about, if a market is shrinking, capital becomes tighter as labor becomes more expensive, all these
Yes.
challenges that are happening in agriculture, horticulture.
Yes.
So your business model is it's sort of a subscription based model, but for heavy industry or for robotics. So
Yes.
I
Robots.
should stop trying to explain it. I'm asking a question. I'll let you
Yeah.
explain it because I don't
Okay.
actually quite get it.
Okay, so when we started looking at the industry, first we had to decide what we want to automate, which we decided it would be hard labor tasks.
Hmm.
And then we wanted to see what are the objections to automation. One of them was the disruption of work that automation creates if it doesn't work properly.
Mhm.
So if you automate a line of work and that automation breaks down, you have to shut your business until it's back up and running. So for that, we created customer replaceable units. And the customer replaceable units can be replaced by the customer to eliminate downtime. And then the biggest objection after we got over those two was how much is it going to cost me to automate? So we
Mm.
said to ourselves, what if we can eliminate the initial capital cost of automation? How would the market react to that? And we came up with this business plan and a strategy for marketing. And we said, okay, we're going to go out there and we're going to ask the farmers What if we charge you for the work the robots do, and you just pay for the work the robots do, nothing more? And if the robots aren't working, you're not paying us anything. And everybody said, wow. So we thought, okay, we have to come up with some numbers to make this work for them and for us, and that's what we did. So now our proposal for the farmers would be, here's a robot. You pay a small monthly fee for the licensing, and or if you don't want to pay a small monthly fee, you just pay it up front for the whole 5 years. And we have a 5-year contract with you, and the robots work. And as the robots work, we bill you for whatever work they've done at a fraction of a cost of labor.
Right.
Now, mind you, the cost of the labor is not the primary concern for this industry at times. It is actually getting access to the labor because there's just not enough people who want to do the job. For example, in Canada, there are a lot of people who come over from Mexico to help these farmers get the job done. And so that itself is an issue. For them to source these people, bring them over, house them, insure them, pay for the planes, or whatever needs to get done. So it's the cost and it's access, both, and we've alleviated the pain that they have in both those areas.
Right. That's one of the questions with robots, though, is the job. I mean, that's going to be. We're looking. We had a show we're doing about the transportation industry, and transportation being fully automated is way, way off.
Yes.
But it's not 100 years off.
Yes.
It's probably our lifetime.
Yes.
Or could be. Does it take away jobs? Does it take away jobs from countries collaborating together to fill these spots, or does it take away local jobs? Does it add job but then replace them with different specialties? Like, have you looked into the research on how robots actually affect employment?
Yes, we have looked into it. So it's a very sensitive subject because there are a lot of robots that are being built to do jobs that people might still want to keep doing. What our approach was and still is and will be in the future is we want to automate jobs that people don't want to do. For example, one of the jobs, spacing plant pots in nurseries and greenhouses. On average, workers lose about 2 to 3 weeks of work per year because of back injuries. And so people just don't want to do that job. They want to do easier jobs within the nursery environment. And so we try to automate only that job that people want to stay away from.
Right.
So by doing that, we have actually given people the opportunity to do what they want to do. We take care of all the hard work, and that helps the industry grow because now they have access to better, happier, more labor.
Yeah.
And then they can grow their business that way.
Right.
Now, there is no question that the nature of job is changing. If 10 years ago, like maybe 20 years ago, you'd have said, I want to be an IoT specialist, everybody would have thought you're out to lunch.
Yeah.
It just didn't exist.
Yeah.
So there are new jobs being created as the technology is advancing. And then there are some mundane jobs, repetitive jobs that are being taken away and automated.
Right.
So that is inevitable. It will happen. 30 years ago, you could pick up any telephone, dial 0, and somebody would say, hello, operator, how can I help you? We don't have that anymore, right?
Yeah.
But we have a whole lot more jobs in telecom than we used to have back then when we had operators, right? So the nature of job is changing. It will keep changing. It is inevitable. It's like the Napster, phenomena when Napster happened. The music industry changed. And, we just have to be aware of what's happening, and we have to prepare future generations to be prepared for those new jobs that are going to come out into the market.
When you're talking to the customers that are looking to work with you, how much of a concern is it? What is their primary focus? Is it easy to explain that to them? Do they kind of pick it up quickly that they're not going to be? I mean, there must be some concern when that initial conversation. Are we talking about trying to get rid of half my staff?
Yeah.
Or are we talking about increasing our efficiency? Is that sort of the dialogue that happens?
The industry we're in, we don't have any problems conveying that message to them because most of them actually feel the pain of lack of labor,
Right.
and they feel the pain of asking their workers to go do this job that they don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So when we come in and we say we have a solution to automate this portion of the work, they actually welcome it very much.
Yeah.
And so they can use their workers to do other things, and all of a sudden it's like a relief, as if, okay, good, now I have enough workers to tend to what I want to happen
Yeah.
in my environment.
Um, do do you know the percentage of jobs that people don't want to do?
Well, we don't compare it to the whole industry.
Mm-hmm.
The part that right now we're automating is plant pot movement.
Okay.
And the numbers we have about it is there are 11 billion plant pots being cultivated and sold every year in about 0.5% of the world's market, which is 50-acre plus nurseries and greenhouses in North America and Europe. And based on that, there are 44 billion plant pot movements that need to take place. Now, there are many other jobs within the same industry that they need workers for, but a lot of those jobs, the workers are happy to do it. And the plant pot movement is the part they're not really enjoying very much.
Mm-hmm.
So we've just focused on automating that portion first, and then eventually, as we find more pain points, we focus on automating those pain points rather than going after the entire process.
Yeah. I want to get into I want to get into actually seeing some of the technology, how it actually works. But I want to take a moment just to give the audience an idea of your background, where you're
Yeah.
coming from. I know, Gowdy, you have some questions about.
Yes. I want to know, and you were actually, before we started, talking about kind of your background, and you mentioned you started with HS and then moved into HSBC, correct? Can you
Well,
tell us?
yes, I've always been in business in Vancouver
Mm-hmm.
since I was 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, I started working for Xerox, and after that, I moved on to work for a company called Household Financial Corp. I was their regional business development manager for British Columbia, and Household Financial Corp got rebranded to HSBC Finance. And I was the regional sales and relationship manager for them for British Columbia. And then from there, I moved on and I started a finance business of my own, and a small investment fund, and many other businesses I was involved with. At one point, I became involved with some tech companies, and I went on their advisory board, and that really keened my interest. And from there, I started doing business consulting. And I came across AIS originally as a client, and then as partners, and then we went in together, and I became their CEO, restructured the company together, and off we went. Yeah.
um, what made you want to or accept going into technology and robotics?
Oh, it's an amazing field to be in. It's one of the most dynamic fields you can get into because everything is moving so fast in this field, and it's fascinating. The people you work with, extremely intelligent people, and there's a lot of excitement in this industry,
Mm.
and you can also create impact. You can create great impact when you're involved with technology. You can make people's lives better, and you can do a lot of good things. So it was exciting for me to get involved.
Do you find any challenges in your field of work?
Yes, yes, of course. Every field of work has
Yeah,
challenges.
sure.
When you work with a bunch of intelligent people, the first challenge is to try to keep them focused on one single task because they want to create and they want to solve challenges and they want to engineer. And sometimes they tend to over engineer things. And sometimes they get excited by things that are amazing, and you have to encourage them on doing that. But at the same time, you have to keep them focused on the task on hand. So that's one of the biggest challenges when you do research and development in technology.
Right.
Wow.
What is your how far does your what is your original background? 20 years old. What were you starting out as?
Well, my background academically, is microbiology sciences, and I've taken various programs in for business and different things, and I'm doing my MBA right now. But I would say my background is business. I've always been intrigued by business and starting business and solving business challenges and putting teams together and creating a focus within that team, and also helping team members grow and achieve their best. And that's what has always driven me, whatever environment I've been in.
Right. The is what when you're talking, Gary asked about, your when you came into AIS.
Yeah.
What prompt was it? Was it the technology or was it the business model? Was the business model there before when you first
No,
came?
the business model wasn't there.
Oh,
The
okay.
technology was at its infancy when I joined in.
Mm,
It was the vision and it was the people.
mm,
The founders and the vision and the dedication they had to what they wanted to achieve. And that is something that really drives me. You know, when I see that people are dedicated, they actually have a vision and they want to do something that makes sense.
mhm.
Because there are a lot of founders who have a lot of passion in what they want to do, but you don't see that clear path forward.
Right.
And now with AIS, I could see that. And so I could see that I could contribute to making that a reality. And that's what prompted me to join.
Right. I want to look at some of the actual, let's look at where would we go? We got their website up. Where would we go here?
Well, on the
Afshin?
website, if you go to the About Us page, in fact, if you scroll down, you'll see some animations happening.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah. So that is the big top, the pod mover and spacer. And of course, it's an understatement to say it just moves pods because it has AI, IoT, and a bunch of other features on it.
Right.
It interacts with the environment and interacts with the end user through the app.
Right.
And if you scroll down, you will see big top in action, picking up a pod to move it. And if you keep scrolling down, you'll see different
Oops.
modules for Big Top. Now, you go down one more. There we go. So here you'll
This
see
one's
Big
pretty
Top,
cool.
and then you'll see a couple of different modules that we're creating to do different things with it.
Oh, I
So
see.
that's the SCARA arm, and this is the cart puller,
Oh, yeah.
and this is the pruning module for the Big Top.
Oh.
So it picks up the plants and prunes it and puts it back down. And if you keep
Oh.
scrolling down, you'll get a little bit more of the animation. But our website, we haven't held anything back. You know, we've put everything out there in the
Mhm.
website. And if you go to the About Us page, we have a video there. And in that video, we talk about who we are and what we do, what Big Top is, and so it's a very complete website. You know, we were in stealth mode long time ago, but you know, about a few weeks ago, we decided we wanted to launch a new website and tell people more about who we are.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where has the technology? How much has changed from when you started to now? I mean, like you said, that everything's moving so fast.
Yes.
So, you know, when this started, where were they? Was the foundation still moving the pots, or was the design like how much of it has stayed since
Yes.
you were there?
Well, when we started, we wanted to address the issue of pod movement and spacing. And eventually, we realized that the platform we are creating can be used for other things. So we created the platform in a modular way and we developed it. This is actually the fourth prototype from when I started with the company.
Oh,
So it started with the pod mover, went into a more advanced pod mover, went into a pod mover that had a very sophisticated software and cloud-based computing, and then went into a platform with different modules where you can just change the module and change the functionality of the platform. And of course, with all the software development and all the algorithms we created, the localization algorithm and also the computing, cloud computing, the AI, the IoT components, that spun off into a product of its own. So when we started, we were a company that was focused on moving parts, but right now we have two complete products and we have 10 more products in the lineup that can cater to various industries, with the main focus being agriculture.
Right. Yeah. I want to get into some of those other industries, but I want to go back to you talked about, like, we're looking at this right here.
Yes.
And how many times did you say that this gets done? You said globally it gets done,
Well,
or
44 billion pod movements is what our market study is. A third-party market study
Yeah.
shows happens within North America and Europe every year in that target market that we have.
wow, wow.
Yeah.
Um, and so what is running this now? I understand that it's IoT and AI,
Yes.
right? But how are they? So how many people does it take to basically oversee
One robot.
one
Yeah,
robot
yeah.
or 10 robots or
So the numbers are about one person for every 10 robots. And that is not for supervising the robot to see what it does. It is for allocating tasks to robot. So the robot does communicate with the end user. So when the work is done, it does send a message to the end user saying, hey, I'm done here. What do you want me to do next? So you're going to have to take the robot to another patch of work, and then you have to allocate the work to it and walk away.
yeah,
So that one person would be able to manage 10 robots easily,
yeah,
depending on, of course, how far the robots are, and what's the amount of work that's allocated at any given time.
right. What that process of programming, of telling it what that task is that how trained does someone have to be able to do that?
A little kid can do it. It's an app, and it's just some simple commands on the app. So just to visualize it for you, the robot has a feature. It's called Follow Me. So you ask the robot to follow you around, and you walk, and the robot just follows you. And you go into a bay where you want the pots to be moved, and you put 4 cones in the corners of the bay, and so the robot knows, okay, this is my working area, I don't leave this. And then on the app you say, okay, these are 2-gallon pots, and I want you to space them 30 centimeters apart, and I want it to be staggered or in a straight line, and go. And then you walk away. So the robot knows it's got 2-gallon pots. It knows it has to space them 20, 30, whatever you give it, centimeters apart, and in this kind of formation.
Yeah,
And it does the job, and once it's done, it sends you a text, hey, I'm done. Tell me what to do next. And if it's running out of battery, it sends you a text and says, hey, I'm running out of battery in half an hour or an hour. Come change it.
yeah.
So you take new batteries in, put it in, and take the old one to the charger.
Pretty crazy. Gowdy alluded to this, but I wanted to dig into it a little bit more. The challenges of the technology itself.
Yep.
What's the big one, or a couple of the big ones? Because what it started out as is not what it's ended up as.
Yes.
Why? What have been? What are at the very beginning? What are the couple of the big hiccups
Yes.
that went? No, we need to adjust this, change this,
Yes.
because for them to be a practical use.
Yes.
What were the main ones that happened?
The biggest challenge, as always, is creating autonomy in the robots. So you want the robot to be able to do as much of the work as it can by itself without having any instruction from anyone or without having supervision.
Yeah.
So that's always the biggest challenge when you talk about autonomous robots. How
Yeah.
do you create that autonomy? And that autonomy consists of, okay, how does it recognize the pots, and how does it know where it is? How does it know the perimeter where it needs to do the work, and the localization, and the navigation of the robot, and how fast you want it to move. You don't want it to move too fast so the pots are flying off the robot, but you want it to move fast enough to create efficiency. So finding those fine points to do your programming to hit all those check marks is challenging, but it's also great when you overcome those challenges and you actually see the robot working the way you want it to.
Yeah. I'm very far from a software engineer, but the one thing that always I'm a little confused with when it comes to IoT and AI is, like, I have there's people that I know that are their company monitors tires. There's
Yes.
companies that are we had a guest on data cloud that they're monitoring the drillings out at mines.
Yes.
It just goes on and on. Monitoring fridge systems for transportation,
Yes.
things like that. How are these? Now I understand that there's proprietary, but is it all built off? Is there a sort of a foundation that this starts with to build the AI and the IoT, or is everybody putting it together from scratch? I've just never quite understood where it starts.
Yes. So the AI, for AI, you need access to an environment or data, right? And you need a task. You want to create intelligence in a certain way, right? For example, AI could be a robot learning to do things faster and better because it's gaining more experience, or recognizing things faster because it's recognized it so many times.
Right.
So you have to pick how and where you want to develop your AI. For example, if you want to detect plant disease, and if you want to do it by taking a picture of a plant and comparing it to a database and see if this plant is healthy or not, and if it's not, what is wrong with the plant. Then you build your AI around recognition of the disease in leaves or or in plants,
Yeah.
right? So that's a little bit different from AI detecting something, let's say the temperature on the truck that's on the road. But the principle behind most of it is, how you take that information, how you interpret it, and how
Right.
you create actionable items out of it, and how you keep improving the speed and the accuracy of the recognition of what you want to recognize.
Right.
And that's what becomes AI. So I guess if you look at the bigger picture, it's all the same thing with the same approach. But once you go through it in a little bit more detail, you see that there's a lot of things that you can do differently depending on how you want to build this.
Right. Do you see what do you see as the limits of AI? Is
Uh,
there?
that's a loaded question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could do a couple of shows just based on that question.
Yeah.
Everybody's afraid that AI will take over.
Yeah.
And if you ask some scientists, they say they will. If you ask some, they say they won't, right?
Yeah.
You can build, well, some would argue this, but I would say you can build ambition and creativity into AI. Because humans still have to have that creativity and the ambition to do things. But AI is a faster, more efficient, better way of doing things and recognizing what needs to get done. And that's pretty much what it is at this point in time. But of course, there's no limit to what humans can do with technology, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I think AI will help us live better lives. I don't think it will make our lives worse. I don't think it will come in and take over and in a futuristic
Yeah.
Wars kind of thing where the AI will take over the human race and we'll all be slaves to the AI. I don't see that happening, but who knows? Maybe I'm not a dreamer.
I think some of us are already slaves to our phones and
Yeah.
technology anyway, so I don't know if we'd notice much difference even if it did happen. But so you develop this. So we've seen it. Okay, it's moving. It's moving pots.
Yeah.
It's trimming bush. Actually, I was gonna ask quickly though. The size. I can't tell how big this is.
Yeah.
From that. Does it fit on this table or is
No,
it?
yeah, it would fit on this table, half the table
Yeah.
possibly. Yeah.
It's about that size.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's sort of the max capacity that it would be able to lift and move, and
Yeah.
that is that or is that
Probably about
scalable?
10 kilograms with the modules we have on it right now per move, a total of possibly 40, 50 kilograms.
Right.
But we can change that. We can scale that,
Yeah.
but we don't need to for the task at hand. It would move anywhere between, let's say, 5 or 6 pots if it's bigger pots, to maybe 9 pots, 10 pots when it's smaller pots.
Right.
And the range of the pots we move is anywhere between half a gallon to 5-gallon pots.
Right.
So for the purpose, it's well fitted. But if we need to give it a stronger module to do more things, then we can make those adjustments.
Yeah. What was I going to ask? So you've got this technology now. Where I know you've got other products you're developing, but I'd like to stick with just the horticulture for a second, and the egg
Yes.
is what what's the next sort of thing that you'll look at after physically moving the pots?
Hmm.
You've got that market. Now what's next?
Well, the pod movement is actually a bigger process than what we see here. Because the pod moves, first of all, from the potting station to the bay, and then it gets spaced as it grows, and then it needs to be picked up and pruned and put back. And then it needs to be consolidated sometimes in order, for the weather conditions, and it needs to be moved to be packed and shipped and all that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of different pod movements happening within this horticulture industry.
Right.
So the next vision is to automate the movement of the pots within the entire system, so humans don't have to move pots. So they can do other things. They can plant, they can plan, they can see the inventory, they can ship, they can do all the other works. But the actual movement of the pots, that's really heavy on the back, and not something they want to do. We automate all of that. Now, that's the physical part of things. But the vision is to build AI around whatever is happening within that environment. So
Right.
we would be able to, on the fly, give any kind of information to the farmer they want. For example, the growth pattern of every plant, like what their inventory is, how many of what plant they have available for shipment, or within the enclosed greenhouse environment, what's the temperature at any given time, but what's the humidity, and if there's a draft, or whatever that is important to them, the CO2 levels, or the intensity of light, depending on what kind of plants they have, and if the intensity of the light is extremely important to them. So the robots are exposed to this environment,
Right.
and we want to gather data from within the environment and share the data that's meaningful as actionable with the farmers,
Right.
so they can know exactly what's happening with their business.
So how far into that have you sort of taken the company at this point?
The entire groundwork is there.
Mm.
What we need to do right now is, as the robots go out there and start working, we need to talk to the farmers and see what kind of data is important to them, so we can start gathering that kind of data.
Right.
But the loop is complete. So, the software is there, the sensors are there, and the access to data is there. It's just what is the data that's meaningful for us to gather.
Right. I imagine anything like this. I know even us to do our show and to do our business creates it's a lot. There's a lot riding on partnerships, working with
Yes.
people, and that. I imagine in a business like this, that's probably even more so.
Very
So
true.
can you walk through some of those collaborations, partners, investors? I mean
Yes.
that's a whole side of the business. I'm sure that you've had a major part in,
Yes.
and why you became part of the
Yeah.
company. So could you sort of walk us through some of that?
Yes.
Those both the partnerships, the investors, sort of how you build it out in the future, things
Yes,
like that.
of course. So we've been very blessed when it comes to partnerships, and our partners have invested with us. One of the first partnerships that we created was a partnership with a company called Agronomics.
Mm.
Agronomics sells to 89 out of the top 100 growers in North America. They're based out of Ohio, and so they have a very solid grasp on this market in horticulture and in automation in
Mm.
horticulture. And Robert Lando, the CEO of Agronomics, um, is involved with us, and we talk to him on regular basis. And of course, he's a great advisor. He's on our advisory board. He has a vested interest in our company. He has invested with us, and he will be distributing for us. So we are blessed to have him on the advisory board, and also as an investor, and also as a distributor. So the relationship is valued, very much valued. And we hope to have a very long-term relationship, and I'm sure we will have with Robert and his company, Agronomics. Now, another relationship we've developed is with Valid Manufacturing, with Chad Shipmaker and Gerald Clancy. And Valid Manufacturing is actually a hidden gem in British Columbia. They are based out of salmon arm, and the first thing people say, "What, salmon arm manufacturing?" Like, everybody knows salmon arm for camping, fishing, and a lot of wonderful nature, but not as a manufacturing hub.
And cheese.
And cheese, yes, and cheese. So we met them through the BC Tech Summit, and very fast we found synergies. So we could work together,
Mm-hmm.
and they have invested with our company, and they are manufacturing our robots for us.
Mm.
And they are putting a lot of engineering into the manufacturing part of the robot. So what we do is we at AIS we look at what needs to get automated. We create a market need for it. We find that market need, and then we create a solution for it. And then from there, we rely heavily on our partners to
Mm.
help us after we've prototyped a machine to bring it to life.
Right.
So we prototype it, we test it, everything is good, and then we ask our manufacturing partner to run with it, manufacture it, and then we ask agronomics to help us distribute it.
Right.
So we don't want to recreate the wheel when we have a partner who's doing an amazing job of distribution and another one who has over 35 years of experience in manufacturing. It wouldn't be to our benefit to go learn from zero how to do things, right?
Right.
So we are blessed with the relationships we have, with the partnerships we have, and also with the fact that they have validated who we are and what we're doing by investing hard cash into our company.
Right. How do you, manufacturer, you start off, you meet at an event, but there are a lot of people, and I'm sure a certain percentage that are watching the show that go, okay, you meet somebody, and we all meet people, but then to actually transition that from a handshake into cash,
Yes.
into a long-term relationship,
Yes.
how do you yourself, how do you do that process? You know, what is sort of the steps or the things you've learned along the way? You have a sales background, you have management background. I'm sure all
Yes.
that comes into play. But
Yes.
what is sort of the practical steps you take?
The first thing is to get to know the people that you want to forge a relationship with and to focus on how they approach life, how they approach their business. And, if, for example, with Valid Manufacturing, they are looking for long-term relationships with people who have that vision. And so we had the same thing. We said, well, we don't want to start manufacturing with somebody who can do it for cheaper price, but they have a very short-sighted vision of how relationships work. And so with Valid, we saw that in them, and we thought, well, this is a great starting step, right? And
Yeah.
so they came to visit us. They saw the product. They were excited about what we were doing. We visited them, and we saw their ability, and we were excited about what they can do.
Hmm.
And then we committed to them, and they committed to us. And then we started sharing information with them. And of course, with every relationship, you have those kinks you have to iron out.
Hmm.
And as long as you know that long term, this is what you hope to achieve, and you're both on the same track, it will take care of itself,
Yeah.
right? So, for example, manufacturing the robots, at first they started and they said, yeah, this is great, we can do it. And then they said, but we think if we can do it this way, it would be a little bit better. And so we went back to the drawing boards and we said, yeah, it makes sense. So we go back and forth and back
Hmm.
and forth until you build so much trust that things will just move forward, right?
Right.
And that's how it happened. And same thing with agronomics. We went to Ohio, we visited them, we went to the Cultivate trade show in Columbus. We spent, a week with them. Robert has been to Vancouver numerous times and spent time with us, and he's guided us through how you develop this product. So the farmers would say, "Wow,"
Yeah.
So he comes to us, and sometimes he's tough with his words, and it's great for us. He comes and says, "This is not good. You need to change it." And we say, okay, guys, back to the drawing board because Robert knows the market, he knows the farmers, he knows what they want. So,
Right.
it's invaluable the kind of advice we get from both Valid and from Robert at Agronomics. And
Yeah.
so, the relationships keep getting stronger. But of course, at first, you get to know each other, you build trust, and you have a handshake, and, you take that first step, and it works, and you keep running.
Yeah. You said that they run into like there's kinks in any relationship. What's sort of your personal approach when you see something that it could derail the relationship? I mean,
Yeah.
you can see it if you've ever been in any sort of business dealings. You
Yes.
can see it's almost from a mile away. You go, oh, we're about to run into this
Yes.
snag.
Yes.
How do you mentioned keeping sort of your eye on, the future, the
Yes.
long-term benefit. But what are some other ways you do it? If you see someone's getting, frustrated or, that
Yes.
sort of thing, how do you sort of personally, contain that or smooth it out?
Well, I think what really works for us is we want to create win-win situations. So if you keep looking at every situation from the other person's point of view and you see why things are happening the way they're happening, and if you want to create a win-win situation, then there's no reason why there's anything that can go wrong with it,
Right.
right? The only time things might go wrong at that stage is if the priorities change or
Hmm.
visions change. And if that happens, then you support each other and you part in good terms. But as long as you pick the right partner with a vision that you can share with them and they buy into that vision and you want to walk down the same path,
Yeah.
there's no reason why anything can go wrong.
Yeah. What is what's the future? Like, you look at a company like AIS, there really is no limit on IoT. There's certainly no limit on artificial intelligence. Where do you go? You said about you working with these such smart people.
Mhm.
I'm sure there's a million directions that even yourself that you could look at and go, we could go this way or that way.
Yes,
Then you have all the different ideas.
yes,
Then you've got your partners who I'm sure have their own ideas.
yes.
Where do you see it sort of? Where's the direction or the path that needs to be stayed on or ideas that needed to be added on and looked
Yes.
at?
Well, we've built this down to a science.
Mm.
So what we do is we have a database where everybody goes in there and puts their idea into the database. And they can explain it as much as they want. And then we have a marketing department who looks at those ideas and they decide whether these ideas are
Mhm.
marketable
Right.
and how close are they to the development path that we are taking with our
Hmm.
products. If there's a match with the development path we're taking and if they're marketable, then they send it to the patent department. And the
Mm.
patent guys, we have a couple of really intelligent people, a full-time lawyer and a postdoc who sit down and work on our patents.
Mm.
So then they come in and they start writing patents around that idea. And then our CTO gives the stamp on it and says, yes, this is good. And so it gets into our pipeline for future development.
Yeah.
And so that way we gather and we farm the intelligence that exists around us
Yeah.
into ideas, and then they go through those little filters to make sure that they're not gonna deviate too much from the vision the company has, and then they get lined up and off we go.
Right.
And based on that, just that process, we have right now 12 products in the lineup. Two of them have been completed, and 10 more we are working on.
Mm.
Yes.
Could you give us a little bit of what are the two that have been completed?
It is the software, the IoT AI software, and the cloud computing. That's one of them. And the second one is the platform and the big top module on it for plant pod spacing.
Yeah.
Now, the pruning module you saw is another one that we're working on prototyping right now.
Right.
The cart puller is another one.
Oh,
A
I
special
see.
shelf that we're
Oh,
creating is
okay.
another one. And so we have a bunch of different ones that we've lined up for future development.
Right. So what's sort of what when you look at with all these, okay, so there's one pruning, there's a shelf mover, there's one that's picking up pots, putting it on this platform. So you've got all this stuff happening.
Yeah.
What's the what does it end up looking like at a standard operation? Are there 20, 30 of these robots buzzing around, and they've all got basically the different connections on them?
Yes.
And
That's exactly it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so what am I trying to how would I say it? How what will the system when a customer's coming to you though, they're on a subscription basis, do you send a team out to then build out what they need, or do they know, like, how is that process done?
Okay. The question you asked right now is a very key question.
Mm.
Do you need to change the work environment for our products to be able to perform?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is no, you don't. So the way we create the products is they fit right into the work environment you have. With some robots, you might need to put QR codes on the floor so they can read that QR code and go from A to B. With some, you might need to create rails, so you put the robot on a rail to go around. With our solutions, you don't need to do any of that. They're autonomous. So when you take a robot and you place it in, you have your app, and you pretty much have everything mapped out, and off you go. So, so that was one of the questions you asked me. But one of the challenges that we've had, it is to create that, so we don't have to create big changes. We don't have to make big changes or any kind of change to the environment where the robot is going to be plugged into.
Yeah, that which leads me to another question: is the competition of it?
Yes.
Because you developed this now, is there someone right next door that's trying to beat you to the punch on it?
We don't know of anyone who's trying to beat us to the punch. This is an industry that's growing at lightning speed.
Yeah.
So we have no doubt that there will be players in this industry, and so far, I think we are in a very good spot where we are, and having agronomics with us, who knows exactly what's happening in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And that's big.
Well, you're in a unique situation in that you have a manufacturer that's invested on one end, and then you have your distributor financially invested on the other end.
Yes.
And that's why I want to talk to you about the partnerships and stuff, because I've done a little bit of advisory in like the VC space and like a very limited amount, but a little bit of investing and everything like that. And so that's quite impressive to be able to be that sort of this new technology, but you're not just a tech company, you actually have a physical robot that's doing it. These aren't just it's not simply the sensor, you're actually coming with the mechanics as well. So, it actually amazes me that you were able to do that. Like, was that a year process? Has it been 5 years? What does it take to develop that relationship?
Yeah, it's in both cases it moved very fast. It moved very fast. With both of them, we visited each other, and they came to our lab. And when you go to a robotics lab, and you see the buzz, and you see how everybody is really focused and working, you can see what's happening, right?
Right.
So you find that degree of comfort that these guys are actually doing something.
Yeah.
They're not sitting around and envisioning something in the future.
Yeah.
They're actually working on something that's being worked on and is going to go into the field and do something today, right?
Yeah.
So that prompted them to move fast, and we appreciate the speed at which they moved. So relationships, I can't give you an exact date, whether it was 10 days or a month, but it moved pretty fast, and the relationships that forged.
What do you think is what do you think is a mistake that people do make, though, in these types of with your type of company? Like, did you wait till you knew you had a solid product, a solid offering before you even tried to forge these relationships? How strong was your ideas for what the company needed to do, or did a lot of the ideas come in after the partnerships?
We had a clear vision on what we wanted to do. But our partners, of course, contributed to fine-tuning that vision.
Right.
For telling us, this is great, but focus on this part first and then do the other one.
Right.
And, for example, I'll never forget this conversation with Gerald Clancy from Valid. He says, everybody's talking about how beautiful the robot is going to look, but I don't care about the beauty. I just want it to do the job. That's what I'm focused on. So what we said is, okay, let's make sure the robot does the job, and then we'll go back and we'll see what color we want it to be, or what kind of shape we want to put on the outside to make it look better, right?
Yeah.
And so those are the guidance that we received, and we also had those in mind, but making it laser focused, is important.
Yeah.
And the mistakes that some people make when they get into robotics and into tech is sometimes they lose touch of what the original vision was,
Mm.
and they get so excited they tend to over-engineer things
Right.
and forget that the simplest you make things and the easiest that's deployable, the best it is, right?
Right.
So doesn't matter how much sophistication there is in the machine, you want the end user to feel like this is the easiest, the simplest thing to
Yeah.
operate.
Why hasn't this been around forever? Kind of
Exactly.
thing. Yeah.
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 So they lose that vision that hey, I'm not building this for an engineer with a postdoc in robotics. I'm building it for a farmer.
Yeah.
I want that farmer to feel good using it and to be able to use it easily, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what some of the challenges might be for some companies that are developing.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask one. I'm gonna ask one more. It's a little bit of a silly question because I heard
Yeah.
it about 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I don't know.
Yeah.
And in underground mining, one
Yes.
of the challenges that they were running into the robots was or autonomous vehicles was shadows.
Yeah.
Is that and I've never got a chance to ask how that got resolved because I heard about the problem and I never heard
Yeah.
about the solution. So what has that now with all these sensors in that? What are they using as a sensor to guide them? You don't have rails. You don't have QR codes.
Yeah.
It's going on its own.
Yeah.
How are they judging light and depth and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff?
Well, what we've done is we have overimposed a few different technologies
Mm.
in order to double check and triple check what's been happening, around the robot. So rather than rely on one single technology, which might just be vision, we've done like vision with 3D and with a bunch of different things that,
Oh.
collaborate together. So if one of them misses something, the other one catches it.
Right.
And that's how we have created that navigation and the recognition of the objects for ourselves. But, it's interesting you brought up mining again. I know you have an interest in mining. We do have somebody on our advisory board, Dr. Tafazoli, who got his PhD in artificial intelligence from UBC about 20 years ago. And he does have an international AI company that caters primarily to the mining industry.
Mm.
It's called Motion Metrics International. And so he's an invaluable member of our advisory board, and he's actually one of the first people who joined the advisory board.
Oh, really?
Yes, and so when the time comes for us to develop something in mining, we do have big knowledge base with us that
Yeah.
we can ask for help.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff, Afshin, and I
Thank you.
appreciate it's like I said at the beginning of the show, we connected off LinkedIn, so
Yeah.
it's all this, so much of this show. Some of it's people we know, it's in our network. Other,
Yeah.
it's quite random. So it's always we always really appreciate it when people they take time out of their day to come on the show and just really give us knowledge about what this stuff is. So
Thank you.
yeah, so thank you for coming
It
on the
was a
show.
pleasure.
Appreciate
Thank you for
it.
inviting me. Thanks
Thank
so
you
much.
so much, Afshin.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna sign off. I see a camera quiet over here, so
Yeah,
this-
so we're going to do this one.
Okay, thank you for watching the show, everybody. How's the robotics talk?
I think it was very interesting. It's one of those topics that it's everywhere now.
Yeah,
So it's good to kind of dig in all the different aspects of robotics and
Yeah.
automation. Yeah.
yeah. I want to sort of expand on that in later episodes too,
Yeah.
on the different areas that robotics are being used. I know we're on the wide screens, so
Yes.
we'll do a
We'll do
quick
a
sign
quick-
off, Gowdy, and where people can find us
Yeah.
and say goodbye.
So please subscribe to YouTube or on our YouTube channel. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all at Crownsman P. You can also join the group, the Crownsman Podcast. We like to talk about all sorts of things throughout all types of industries. Please and email us if you want to sponsor, be a guest. You can email us at info@crownsman.com. Visit our website at crownsman.com.
Yeah. And we're doing. We are helping companies do the group podcast. We're putting professional groups together to create their own podcast or web series to sort of, if it was a group of engineers or even a group of real estate agents or whatever it is, we're developing that. We're doing web series live on locations now for people at trade shows, so bring in your partners. So we're doing a lot of neat things. So yeah, please talk to us, and
Yeah.
we'd love to work with you.
Perfect.
Okay, we will see you on the next show.